This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time's coming.
That's
Train can't be stopped. I'm over here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time's coming.
That's
Train can't be stopped. I'm over here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time's coming.
That's
Train can't be stopped. I'm over here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time's coming.
That's
Train can't be stopped. I'm over here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last,
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
singular, has he brought break. Monsieur Coleman,
I can only show you the door.
waking up.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Great message. The world is changing. Every day,
Civilization is weird.
time's coming.
That's
Train can be stopped. That's all right here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last,
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
singular, has he brought break. Monsieur Coleman,
I can only show you the door.
waking up.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Great message. The world is changing. Every day,
Civilization is weird.
time's coming.
That's
Train can be stopped. That's all right here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last,
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
singular, has he brought break. Monsieur Coleman,
I can only show you the door.
waking up.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Great message. The world is changing. Every day,
Civilization is weird.
time's coming.
That's
Train can be stopped. That's all right here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last,
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
singular, has he brought break. Monsieur Coleman,
I can only show you the door.
waking up.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Great message. The world is changing. Every day,
Civilization is weird.
time's coming.
That's
Train can be stopped. That's all right here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind. Is this anything that is broken to me?
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Any of us has a wrong to break. Monsieur, call me.
I can only show you the door.
Waking up.
You're the one that has to walk through.
Recognize
Something's happening, right?
the world is changing. Every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time's coming.
That's
Train
it.
get me stopped. It's already here.
Check. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to
This is your
start.
last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Let's get
You
this off
take
the
the blue
screen.
pill. The story ends. You wake up.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to The True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. First episode back from the new year. Really excited about that. And to have more episodes coming, more individuals coming in here. Also, a panel that's being brought together, and everyone that has been back on, I think, episode 30, I think it was 32, with Freedom Man. So we were talking about that last time, and we'll get more in depth in that in the future. But everyone that's tuning in, I appreciate y'all. I'm just trying to get the cameras situated. Just bear with me a moment. You know how these lives go. The lives are probably like a new, like not new, but I have gone live, but they can get a little funky, and it's like sometimes I don't want to do them, but it makes it fun because when I've been posting about in the future, I want people to get more involved and actually have them come on to the conversations. So I'm still trying to get the camera situated and all that stuff, because right now this one's out for whatever reason, but that one catches right here, and so does that one. But it's a work in progress, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone wants to donate cameras, feel free. Just hit me on the inbox, and we can figure that out. So yeah, we're back. It's the new year. My new year was really good. Very, very peaceful, very calm. Not a lot going on. I'm a dad, so not a lot happens. It's more about the kids now. More about family. Christmas was good. I hope everyone else Christmas and New Year's was good too. And it's good to be back in here, and also to have. Is it Magan or Megan?
It's Megan.
Okay, so but you did the Magan because you're play on words pretty much.
Well, that's the way my grandmother or my mother decided to spell
Roger
my
that.
name.
Roger
It's
that.
actually Greek.
Okay, cool.
I just thought my mom decided not to spell my name normally.
Okay, because
but
I thought when I saw it spelled, because of the time that we're in, I was like, she's using a play on
no,
word.
I've been called Magan
But
Megan.
it's clever.
So I hear you.
It's still clever.
It's different.
Also, cheers, by the way.
Cheers.
Cheers. Do you want a water?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if I asked you at the beginning. I know, plastics, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get glass bottles in here. It's hard. America's trying to kill everybody. Sorry to start off with that note. But cheers.
Cheers.
This is a local brewery out here, I believe, Pawtucket. I've mentioned that they don't sponsor us, but hey, if you want to sponsor us, Sons of Liberty Beer and Spirits out of Pawtucket. I think they're out of Pawtucket. Anyway, Chair 2 IPA and the Chair 2 Lager.
It's good.
Yeah, they're good stuff. So yeah, it's good to be back in here in the studio on The True Perspective, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Rumble. I have it's an amateur opening of the beer. I have Magan in here and Sara, both from. Are you both from the Rhode Island elections, Rhode Island Fair Elections and Education? Okay, and also Magan, you have a podcast, Renegade
Minds.
Renegade
my
Minds.
Husband.
Yep, you and your husband. Yeah, how was your New Year's? How was Christmas? How was the holidays? Just all that stuff.
So I have 3 kids too.
Mhm.
So our Christmas had a lot of family come in from out of state, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, it was very peaceful, very quiet. Even our New Year's was very quiet this year.
Yep.
We had it at home, just had our Chinese food,
There you go.
kicked back, watched a movie. That's about it.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, same. I mean, family was great for Christmas and everything. That's always good. We have a younger, well, I say younger. She's gonna be 21 this year. Younger adult in the house, and she goes and does whatever she wants to do. And she wasn't home, but we Chinesed it and watched a movie too. I think 8:30 we were done.
There you go. Yeah.
It's just too much going on all the time. So it's nice to relax when a holiday comes.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been going back and forth, you and I, through different chat segments and all that stuff, and I found out about your podcast, and then evidently I saw a post. I guess you made the post, but it was from out of Rhode Island Elections and Education, Rhode Island Fair Elections and Education group page on Facebook. And we were talking earlier. I was trying to remember the post that was made. Can't remember it, but I remember reaching out saying if there's any help that I can provide on getting this information out there, I'll have you on the podcast. And I guess Sarah reached out to you, Magan, and then you reached out to me, and then I was like, oh, well, then let's kill two birds with one stone and have you both on here, talk about the podcast, also talk about this. I did go to your website, listen to a few things. I didn't know that you could actually volunteer and be a what's the correct term?
Poll worker.
Poll worker.
Or a watcher. So there's actually multiple things you can volunteer for.
Yeah, not the kind of poll workers that you're thinking out there, ladies and gentlemen. Calm yourselves. The kind of poll worker or poll watcher rather, to make sure that the elections are going fairly.
Yep.
If you want to go into that and on what this is exactly, what this organization is and all that stuff, you can kick it off.
Sure. Yeah. So Rhode Island Fair Elections and Education, we found last year actually to get at a grassroots level, a whole bunch of us volunteers were really concerned about what's going on with Rhode Island elections.
Okay.
And what we can talk about all the endeavors that we've been through the last couple of years trying to figure out what's going on. But what you're talking about in particular is we're really calling it call to action, particularly in an election year right now, right? It's very important. We're in 2024. It's go time.
Right on time, too, yeah.
Yeah. And we are really trying to get Rhode Island fired up, and anybody else that's listening in any other state to connect with your grassroots election team. I'm sure there's one in your state, and if you don't know, you can always contact us, and we can connect you. We're connected nationally as well.
Nice.
But we really are trying to get people to understand what a poll worker is. And a poll worker is someone, you get paid for that position. You're the person when you go into to go vote. That's the person that's sitting at the desk that checks you in. That's the one that's kind of overseeing the elections with the poll books and the machines.
Yeah.
And that's a paid position through the Secretary of State. So that's a poll worker.
And there's different positions within that. I've done it. My husband's done it. The person who checks you in is a supervisor. Then you have a moderator, and they're
just bring that mic closer.
There
to
are
you.
different positions.
You can push it to you if you want to.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, you're good.
But and they do offer different pay rates, and we did it twice in 2020. And it's interesting. The last time we did it, I actually had to get promoted because they didn't have enough.
Yeah.
So
is it like an hourly thing, or is it just like almost like a contract? Like you're there for the day. How long are you there for?
All day.
All day. Okay.
Like before the sun's up and after the sun's gone.
Okay.
And it's a day rate.
Gotcha. Okay, it's a day rate. Gotcha. Okay. And so I mean, is it basically like playing security, making sure basically all these votes are going in correctly, nothing's being fumbled? Like, It's
actually working the election. It's actually facilitating the entire process. So from when you come in the door, you check in. I mean, you know how to vote, right? So they check in with those lovely little poll pads that we love so much. That's sarcasm, but so they check you in with that, and then you get a ballot, and then you go and you cast, you vote, and then you put in the DS200 when you're done, which is the machine, the tabulator, another device we love. And so there's always somebody standing there, and it's just to make sure that there's no error. And then there's another person who is, if there are issues, you go to them, and that person will help you with whatever issue it is, whether it is absentee ballot because maybe you're not registered to vote, or maybe you're at the wrong precinct, or any kind of issues like that. That's where that person goes. And you go through a training with the state. It wasn't very long of a training, and then like halfway through we couldn't get through it, so they emailed us a test and a video that you can find on YouTube. So that was the extent of our training.
Was there a reason why they couldn't get through it, or
it was a technical issue? But I feel like, without completely like just slamming everything, there's just a little bit to be desired in the training, in my opinion, because I had no idea what I was doing when I had a vague idea, based on reading the packet and stuff like that. But it's like being thrown to the wolves. I mean, you get asked questions, you have no idea what the answer is, because we don't do civics. Where's the civics class?
Yeah.
So
right.
it's that's why I think we're going to do a training too on top of it to add to it. But it's good to get involved in the process, because how many people know that, like right now I've been talking to people, how many people know that you have to get 1,000 signatures for a candidate to get on the ballot?
Yeah, I didn't know that either until recently when I had Paul Rihanna in here and he was talking about that, and Nayoka Powell.
Well, but the presidential
I
election
didn't
as
even know that
well.
either.
Yeah. So, that's new for a lot of, like, people are
You just need
now,
1,000 to be on the presidential.
Yeah. So basically what happens is the candidates. So Biden, Trump, Vivek. Well, Vivek didn't in Rhode Island, but Haley, all of them, they pay the DNC or the GOP in the state to get signatures.
Gotcha.
If they don't get 1,000 signatures, they don't get on the ballot. So if Biden doesn't get 1,000 signatures in Rhode Island, or if Trump doesn't get 1,000 signatures in Rhode Island, neither of them will be on the ballot.
Okay.
And most people don't know that.
I did not know that. I actually did not know that part. I thought you had to. I thought you had to have like a significant amount of delegates, I guess, backing you on it. But I didn't know it just took 1,000 to get you on there. That's, in hindsight, it's really not. It's not that many.
It's not, as long as people are aware that it needs to happen.
Right.
But if people aren't aware, and they have until the 11th, I believe, at 4:00 on the 11th to get those signatures in. And I think Trump has 51 right now, and Biden has 400 and something right now.
In Rhode Island?
Yeah. I don't know the other numbers though.
Biden?
Yeah.
Has 400 and something?
Yeah. Last I was.
Come on, Rhode
told.
Island. What's wrong with you? You want that inflation to continue? You want $200 more billion to go to Ukraine? Anyway, sorry, I digress.
No. But so yeah, it's really important to be poll watchers and understand what's going on. We've had people who see issues and they don't understand what those issues are because they don't understand the process of, what happens before the polls open or what happens after the polls open, which we could get into some really interesting stories if you really wanted to. But
yeah, let's go.
Well, do you want to talk about the poll watcher part real quick?
This
first
is all this information is like pretty much brand new to me. First of all, I didn't know you. I thought you had to be actually like involved with the state, in the state, something to do with like something governmental within the state to actually be an observer of elections. This is brand new to me, I actually feel like a child not knowing that. I should know that, but
we all should know that, but a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
How many people can give you NFL stats but can't give you the 3 branches of government?
Right.
Let's be real.
Yeah, right. They can give you every beer served there, I tell you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, go into the stories or...
You want to poll watchers real quick?
Oh, yeah, too. So there's the poll workers, which is what we just talked about. That's a paid position. But then you can, if you can't, the only thing with being a poll worker that's that's a drawback, particularly for me with having kids at home, is I can't do the whole day. I can't be there from, what did you say, 7?
Oh, you get there at like 5 or 6. because the polls open, but you have to set up literally
Oh,
everything.
everything.
So there's like a little thing called MiFi, which
Yes.
is, we don't connect to the internet or anything, guys. That you have to set up for that, so
Yeah.
the computers talk, all kinds of stuff. So
Okay.
Right. So I don't have that kind of time to spend all day.
Right.
But if you wanted to do a civic duty and volunteer sometime, you can be a poll watcher, which is a volunteer position. You donate a block of time, which is something I can probably do at this stage of my life, to be able to just go volunteer to watch the polls. And that's a position that people can apply through whatever party you're affiliated with. You affiliate, if you're a Democrat, you call the local Democrat party and say, hey, I want to be a poll watcher. Or if you're if you're a Republican, you can call the local Republican party and be a poll watcher or a poll observer or a poll runner.
or a challenger too, right?
Challenger.
Okay.
And those are the volunteer positions, which are equally as important because you're overseeing that whole process, making sure that those people that are being registered to vote are actually registered voters in that precinct. You're also making sure you have a list in front of you of all the people in that precinct. You have it's called a voter roll, and you will have all those people in front of you, and you can go, oh, okay, Jane Smith hasn't come in yet. Let's see maybe she needs a ride. Maybe she needs some way to get here. Let's see if maybe she's going to come to vote. Maybe she didn't know it was election day. And that's
Maybe she needs a ride.
right. Those kinds
Right,
of
right.
things. So getting people more engaged that way is another thing we're really thinking this is a call to action because people don't know this information. I didn't know all this information 4 years ago when I
Nope.
first started this. Either. And I think that goes into what Megan was just saying about civics. We're not taught these things in school about how to get involved in your local government. Because we always say to people, local action equals national impact. Getting involved locally and knowing what's going on in your town, and also knowing how to get involved, whether it be like me as a mom, just donating some time, or if you can do the whole day, great. Just trying to figure out how you can get involved and get off the couch, basically.
Come on, kids, get off the video games.
Get off the video
Get out there.
games.
Stop Netflix and chilling.
Right. Do you think so? Because you mentioned that you hadn't gotten into it about in 4 years prior. Was it due to the prior election that had gone on?
Yeah, I can get into that story. So my husband and I have always been civically engaged. We've always voted. That's something and we've instilled that in our children. And we've always had pretty good conversations around the dinner table where my kids know what's going on. I've always brought my kids to my local precinct to vote. So all the old ladies knew who I was. They knew my kids. They would get their stickers. And so
all about the stickers.
that was very important to my husband and I that our children voted, because that's a privilege that we have in this country that other people don't have. So we always made sure that was very important to our kids. Now, I went to bed 2020 thinking one thing. I'm like, okay, everything's okay. Woke up. I'm sure a lot of people, other people felt this way too. Like, what happened?
Right.
What in the world happened? I saw one thing, and then I went to bed, and then something else happened. And that got I was already a curious person before this all happened. So I kind of figured maybe something happened. Like I had this curiosity of they're telling me this one story. The media's telling me this one story, but that's not jiving with what I know.
Right.
So I just kept trying to find answers. And I found this group in Rhode Island. And this was in December of 2020. And I went to this group and I just sat and listened. And there was a gentleman there talking about Rhode Island elections. And he made a lot of sense. And I was thinking, wow, I need to talk more to this guy. I met him the next month. They have a meeting every month. I met him again in January, and he was talking again. And I talked to him for a while about, he's a data guy. He knows a lot about elections. And he had he had pictures and graphs and everything about what happened in 2020 election.
The presidential election. Okay. Is he from Rhode Island?
Yes.
Can we mention his name, or is he off the radar for right now? Gotcha. Roger that.
And but anyway, very knowledgeable, very trustworthy, has military background. So
Okay.
I trust this person.
I
But-
often joke and say that he speaks in
Sharpie.
in Sharpie, yeah, and I tend to try to translated into crayon so people like me understand what he's saying, because he's just, I'm not a stupid person, but he makes me feel like I could up my intellect because he's that smart with the things and the way he talks. It's a data guy.
So he's a numbers guy.
Yes. And so what that made sense to me. So when I knew I was looking at something, I'm like, this makes sense to me. I need to figure out more. And so we just started having some meetings and trying to get people involved. And that's how I got involved in our group, is because he was that data guy. And as Megan was just saying, we were trying to figure out we have so much information. How can we get this information out to the public so the public can be able to understand it and teach them how to regurgitate this information to other people?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which has been the last 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. And has this is all run independently?
Oh yeah.
The state's
this is state grassroots.
Grassroots.
These are
Straight
all
grassroots.
volunteers.
Well, I'm saying like no one from within the state has encouraged this to be a.
We have a couple of reps that we can talk to about these things that are on our sides, but for the vast majority, absolutely not.
Right. Okay. Would it be best for it to just be run independent? I mean, in my opinion, I think it'd be best to have it run independently. Only because
when you look at the affinity groups,
we know what the state ends up doing.
When you look at these affinity groups that do what they do in every aspect of every issue that we have, specifically elections, you're looking at the League of Women Voters, you're looking at Common Cause, and groups like that. They're heavily, I believe, let me put this out there as an opinion, they are heavily directed, influenced, financed, and all of that by left-leaning mentalities. And you can't have government-funded, privately funded, you can't have privately funded elections. When you have our government already funds our elections. When you start having privately funded things going on, you've compromised what's happening. We had a meeting in Coventry where we were speaking with Rob Rock and Greg Amore, Secretary of State. For those who don't know Rob Rock,
I believe he's the deputy of state now. He's the kind of the second in command.
And highly involved with the ERIC system and things like that, which we'll talk about with the voter rolls. And I asked Rob Rock, you're okay with privately funding elections? And his response to me was, yeah, all the money we can get. I said, so if Trump came and he wanted to finance all of our elections, you'd be okay with that? He had nothing to say to me, because he's not okay with that. They're only okay with it when it's beneficial.
Right.
Because they know the control that comes along with money. So when you look at these groups and they have this dirty hand wrapped around them, that's a problem. So it is best for it to be, in my opinion, not necessarily Sara and I, but citizens. We have given up a power over the years and allowed ourselves to be manipulated and controlled to a level that is, I was saying we're at a precipice where we won't be able to return, but I mean, we're at a tough spot.
Yeah, we are.
We're in a really tough spot. I was saying that 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, almost, it's, we need people involved. We need citizens involved, and it needs to be nonpartisan. I can have whatever political views I want, but in reality, what it comes down to is I want what's best for America, for our republic, and for our freedoms. It's not about Donald Trump. It's not about Vivek Ramaswamy or whoever you want to support. It's about the fact that this country is crumbling, and the foundation for your 2A rights, your First Amendment rights, your right, your parental rights for your kids in schools, all of that foundation is being ripped out from underneath everybody because the people who we quote unquote voted in are demolishing it. So the elections are super important to every single issue that people have, and yet they refuse to see it. My issue is bigger than your issue. It's all I hear. And reality is, I don't want to say elections are bigger than Second Amendment rights. I was born in Texas. I love guns. You know, I grew up hunting. That's my right. It's everybody's right. But I understand that the elections and the people that were quote unquote elected are the ones tearing that apart. So if you don't fix your elections, you're not fixing any of those issues. Now are the elections fixable? I think that's up to the American people.
I mean, 100% agree with everything you just said there, right there. I can't even, anyone that would argue any of those, you either are being paid as part of some kind of agenda, or you obviously want the destruction of this country in the state in whatever state that you live in. I do think that these issues need to be nonpartisan. 100% they need to be nonpartisan. People could say like, oh, well, you know, this is just trying to make sure that, you know, one side wins over the other. If the elections are not fair, then where do we go as a country? Where are we going as a country? I mean, after what we've seen, I hate to say the dirty words to knock me off of some of these platforms, but January 6th, along with COVID, along with the elections and the essential fraud that it's probably evident. I'm saying probably because some states it's not too clear, but then other states do have some clear indication that there's been fraud. And people are saying, oh, that's just conspiracy. That's nonsense. That's just Republican white nationalism or some bullshit like that. Because they tried to label those things in that way, so it discredits what's being said, and instead of the truth being found, as the truth not being accepted or being looked at. So I'm ranting a little bit, but I 100% agree that we won't have our Second Amendment rights or our First Amendment right to free speech to even have these conversations if we cannot make sure that these elections are fair and it's fair. I mean, plain simple. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear about mail ballots being thrown into a river or in a dumpster and getting burned, or, them not being counted when it's on the other side. Whatever, if it's the opposing side, it's the opposing side. The American people speak. That's what it needs to be. I'm ranting off a little bit on that, but I 100% agree on that. And I do think that where we are going as a country, if we can't lock this in, if we can't make sure that people understand that you actually have a lot more power in this voting process, where you can make sure that the votes are being counted for correctly, or there's nothing else going on. The votes, whoever they are, whoever they're voting for, is going through correctly. And I think every state, every county, everywhere that this process is going on for the whole country, whether it be on the local, state, and federal level, needs to be 100% needs to be looked at. And this can't happen again.
And that's part of the problem, though, is because they won't let us look at anything. Why? Well, you can request certain
Well,
things,
that's another
but
thing.
if it's all up and up, why is there a lack of transparency across the board, across the nation, including in the state?
So, things that I found out during that process between Trump and Biden, when the election, not even just Trump and Biden, but on the local level of elections, where Republican or conservative voters were being blockaded. We saw that during the Bush campaign, where he was supposedly Jeb Bush was blockading a lot of the minority voting class, right? The minority vote. And supposedly that's how Bush was able to gain over Gore when Gore won and all that stuff. We saw that already. We're not unfamiliar with voting fraud. I mean, it happens, right? I mean,
Since before the 60s.
Yeah, since before the 60s, of course. But there was evidence of supposed blockade between the Democratic vote in Florida during the time of Bush, between Bush and Al Gore. Now, fast forward, Trump and Biden, right? Trump's campaign was a complete monstrosity as far as the constant attack and the constant Russia collusion stuff that came out to be fake and blah, blah, blah. So putting all of that together with all the distraction, and then the riots were also paid for. Shout outs to George Soros. You know what I'm saying? And laptop went suppressed, right? And it was found, and so far, Biden's son, Hunter Biden, say his name, Hunter Biden, was found to have videos of younger women on his laptop and doing crack cocaine and all this stuff. Who's
gone through that report?
Oh, it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's disgusting. I haven't done a podcast about it yet. I want to though. I plan on doing that. It's gross. Also, that cocaine in the White House was for sure. Allegedly, you have to say allegedly, but for sure that was his. But anyway, I'm going. I think I'm going a little bit too far right now as far as.
It's easy to do.
It is, because there's just so much information to unpack with all this stuff.
Yep.
It's. I mean, it's scary in the sense of that our republic is such under threat, not just by the voting, but there's so many aspects to where our country is completely vulnerable on so many levels, and the election being a crucial part to that.
Elections have consequences.
Yeah. So look at the border, right?
Yeah.
With all the people coming over the border.
Yes.
There's by design. I'm going to quote.
It's my words.
I'm going to quote
by
Megan.
design.
Of course,
Take a
by
drink.
design.
Take
Yep.
a drink. That's what we do.
Of course, by design. Mm-hmm.
And so you have to look at that, and why is that happening? Why are they allowing it?
Right.
We can go down a rabbit hole with that whole thing too.
All military-aged men.
Yep. Just men.
Most of them.
Most men.
When you flee a country for safety, you bring your family.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
And there's also 84,000 children, I think, missing. Migrant children.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's another. That's
There's
another part of it.
We can
Another
get
part
into
of it.
that all day long too.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
But again, there's a reason why that's happening, and there's a big. And we follow elections a lot, and there's a lot happening with non-citizens, illegal aliens, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Getting on
Dirty words.
dirty. And how dare I, right?
Yeah, how
call them
dare you.
illegal aliens,
How dare you
but
say that.
call it like it is. I know.
Right. How dare you say that?
But my point is that these people, there's a reason why that's happening. There's a reason why Rhode Island had driver privilege cards come active July 1st that look identical to your license.
Mm.
There's no identifiers to that. So some illegal alien is going to have a license that looks exactly like yours, and if they decide to go to the polls, how are they going to be able to identify that? Because we already know from all the research that we've done, if you want to vote in a presidential election, you can just go sign an attestation form.
Mm-hmm.
Vote.
That's
I
a
think
whole
Sorry, go ahead.
can of worms with that.
I think Gina Raimondo put that in place, didn't she? If I'm not mistaken.
What part?
The identification.
No, so
Was
that
that her?
wasn't Raimondo. That was I can't remember the rep who wrote that out, but
Matty Yellow. I'm just blowing up names right now. I
You
mean,
are.
those are
right now.
those are names to look into. By the
But
way, everyone out there.
Representative Patricia Morgan, argued on the House floor about this being identical, and she was told that was looking too much into the word identical.
Mm-hmm.
Identical doesn't mean that it's going to look exactly like your driver's license.
But close.
Right. So there wasn't going to be a barcode on the back, is what was said, and we kind of tore into them when this happened, because I actually was the one who sent the DMV request to get the prototype image of what the driver's license would look like, and you're like, your license, like, can you send me an image? Literally the same thing. What systems are in place to prevent non-citizens from voting? The law. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally it. So what it comes down to is if they get on the voter rolls. So I'm going to use the hypothetical if they get on the voter rolls. That's all it takes. All they have to do is take that driver's license and have it scanned, and if they're on the voter rolls, they get a ballot. Period. That's what happens. Well, they can't get on the voter rolls.
Mm.
How can you ensure that they're not getting on the voter rolls? Well, they can't. Well, Rhode Island actually kind of is an automatic registration system when you go to the DMV. If you don't check the box correctly, you're going to end up on the voter rolls. And that's ERIC, and that's PPI, and that's everything. We'll talk about that in a second. But these IDs do not, there's nothing, other states have, non-citizen, or, they have some kind of identifier. We have nothing, absolutely nothing. And We also have it admitted that non-citizens have ended up on our voter rolls in certain towns. So it's
As of now, like as of recent.
yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yes. And there's a whole report that PILF did, Public Interest Legal Foundation. They did a whole report on certain states and certain towns like California and areas like that, where they took the percentage of non-citizens that ended up on their voter rolls and they dissected how they ended up getting on the voter rolls. And a lot of them were through the DMV. Some of them were special groups like, I mean, that's where I would say probably League of Women Voters and things like that. You know, so it does happen. It happens across the country. It has absolutely 100% happened in Rhode Island. And you have to ask yourself on what level, because we can't even get dead people off our voter rolls. So,
And are they like when they're getting these IDs, are their names automatically being registered in as voter?
So we
So,
cannot
like-
acquire a list like that. We've asked. The Secretary of State gets a list of everybody who gets a driver privilege card, but that list is not allowed to go to anybody else. So it's almost like how do police know? How do how does anybody know? No, this ridiculous statement of the fear of these people's safety is just insanity, in my opinion, because nobody's going to hurt these people. They've been allowed to come here.
Right.
Now, at what point is it that you say you can't use that they'll get deported when we're a sanctuary state? They're not going to get deported because because we're a sanctuary state. They're allowed to come here. So what is the real reason of hiding all of this?
Right.
Because that's not it.
Right.
And these people can absolutely reach out to the Secretary of State, ask for those voter rolls, get every single bit of my information, your information, her information, everybody listening, from your address to the year you were born, everything like that. Know exactly where you live. But we don't even get to know who they are. That's a two-tiered system.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's a red flag. It's a red flag right there. Because you're right. They absolutely know all of your information. If you're a citizen of the state, at the very least, they know who the citizen
It's public information.
Right. Right. Yeah. It is public information. But on the other end, with this going on, their information is inaccessible
Yes.
That's correct.
because
They're protected. We're not.
We've asked many times for the DMV just to provide us how many driver privilege cards have you issued since July 1st?
Yeah.
Just a number.
They won't tell you.
We
We
just
don't
want to
even
know
get
the
a number.
number.
What about Freedom of Information Act?
That's what
That's
Trying.
so that's what an APRA is, right? So it's an access to public records request. It's like a FOIA, Freedom
Yeah.
of Information. They're kind of the same thing, just different.
they call that in
Yeah.
Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, they call it an APRA.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and a federal freedom or a federal information request is called a FOIA.
Okay.
I know. It's
Yeah.
a lot.
We're gonna
And-
make your head explode by the end
That's
of this.
But I want people to understand. That's part of it. I want people to understand and get maybe mad. I would love for someone to get really angry.
I get mad.
Yeah.
Every time we learn something new, I swear it's like it's infuriating.
and and to say when your Secretary of State is saying our elections are free and fair and the gold standard, but you're not giving that information to someone. I live here. I pay taxes. I pay your salary.
Right.
So
100%.
I want that information.
I want that information. Yeah.
Give it to me.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm not allowed to have that. So
No.
I want people to understand that's get mad.
Yeah.
Get mad. Get mad about these people coming into your state. Get mad about these people possibly voting.
Yeah. Speaking of requesting information, did you watch 2,000 Mules?
I have not watched
you,
that.
You got to watch 2,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm a
any
little
of
late
your
on that.
audience, if you haven't watched 2,000 Mules, you should absolutely
Yeah.
watch it. It's data. It's nothing but data.
Yep.
And it's the same program that was used to get everybody in J6 that is in jail. So we can use it to arrest people for domestic terrorism,
For being escorted inside of a state house.
grandmas, and the whole 9 yards.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't count to track where people are dropping off ballots, even though we got video footage to go along with most of it.
Yeah.
When that comes to that video footage, we asked for video footage here in Rhode Island, and I actually had towns tell me, $5,000, because we have to have somebody watch that footage before we can give it to you. So you're telling me you have security on these drop boxes that you're supposed to be monitoring. I mean, this is an enormous thing is the elections, and you're not even monitoring the drop boxes. You're not even watching the footage, so you can't give it to me because you haven't even seen it.
So they're saying they're saying
I
they'll
would
charge
have to
you
pay
$5,000
because I have to pay for somebody to watch it. I have to pay so much an hour for somebody to review the footage before it can be released to me. So you never
What?
watched it.
$5,000.
You've got 2,000 mules
exactly. They
going out
never
all
watched
over
it.
the country, and you never even watched our drop boxes. I mean, regardless of the fact that ballot harvesting is legal in Rhode Island, it's absolutely allowed and paid for, and it's like the sacrificial lamb,
Right.
For the Democratic Party. But
How about ballot harvesting? How is that? Where's the loophole there that makes that? I mean,
there is no loophole. It's just legal.
It's just legal.
It's just legal.
It's just legal in Rhode Island,
Yes.
or is it legal across the country?
It's not legal across the country. Some states
But
allow
it's
you to
legal in
do
Rhode Island?
it is 100%
I'm not
legal in Rhode
surprised,
Island.
but-
yeah. And we got rid of ballot the signature verification. You can just sign with an X. You don't need a notary, you don't need anything.
I knew our state was corrupt. I didn't know how deep
I'm telling you.
I didn't know how deep the wound goes.
That's why we quit pursuing the drop boxes, because even we could absolutely show it and prove it. You know,
Right.
if it happened, if we found it, but what's the point?
Well, I guess that's where I had a question about the ID stuff, because that's, to me, that sounds like, well, these people don't even have to show up to the ballot at all.
So you understand what we said about the non-citizens, the illegal immigrants voting and getting our access. So they've created 2 tiers, right, of
Yeah.
citizens, basically. We have a 2-tier justice system. Right? You see that.
Mm-hmm.
We have they have created 2 classes of voters. The voters who go in person, show their ID, prove who they are, act within a, like the civic duty, and it's in
a
front of
public
everybody. It's in a
forum.
public forum, all of this. And then you have people who don't have to show their ID to vote. They just don't.
What the fuck?
When do you show your ID for a mail-in ballot?
They don't have to show? That's amazing.
When you receive a mail ballot application, it gets mailed to
Oh,
you,
and
and then you
and
fill
then-
it out,
yeah,
and you send
mail-in.
it back in, and then they send you a mail ballot,
Right.
and then you mail it in. So if you
So they're
end up with
depending
a
on
stack
that.
of those,
They're totally depending on that
Yes.
method.
Yeah, for sure. And with the Let Rhode Island Vote Act that they passed in 2022, which was Megan was just referring to, is you used to have to, when you had a mail ballot or you did absentee voting, which has always been a thing.
Yeah.
and we're
absentee voting.
for absentee voting.
That's different.
Mm-hmm.
When they codified mail ballot voting, they took away, with the Let Rhode Island Vote Act, they took away the notary and the witness. So you don't have someone that's looking over your shoulder, verifying that that's actually you for a mail ballot application.
Yeah.
So it could be anybody. It could be Joe Schmo. Could be someone that's got a mail ballot in my name,
Right.
your name.
Someone who's dead.
Someone
Is
who's
that
dead.
Is that how they get in there? I'm guessing that's how they have to get in there. No one's
It's a
showing
way.
up with a.
It's one way. That's where you would play into the whole. You would have to understand what phantom voters are. On
I don't
the
know why I
voter
seem like
rolls.
I'm surprised right now. I'm just surprised of how deep that part goes in Rhode
Well,
Island.
that's the carrot for the other side.
Right.
That's how they ballot harvesting
Yeah.
and not being able to have any. There is that whole process of a mail ballot. The whole process is faulty.
There's no
It's so
there's no
full of-
chain of custody either.
That's what I was going to say.
It's awful.
The chain of custody, like how you would follow that mail ballot, you can't follow it
Hmm.
because you don't know. I don't even know if this is going to be the address that it should be at, if this person lives at this address.
It's not certified mail. It's nothing. And then you
So then some random person could just fill it out and send it back because they're
Because there's
they're
no
being a jerk or
witness,
something.
there's no notary.
that's what happened
Right?
with 2,000 Mules. Basically.
So if you watch 2,000 Mules, it's very eye-opening about what
Yeah, I got to watch that.
could be
I'm a
happening.
little late behind that, but
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, I knew that I knew about ballot harvesting. I maybe I just didn't know like the actual
extent. Or,
Yeah, the extent of where it goes.
It's actually a business. There's
It is.
someone
They get
in
paid.
Rhode Island who made it a business to
Who-
pay for ballot harvesting.
Who is this person?
Ooh,
Do we know?
Don't remember.
we do.
We do. Okay.
We just don't remember the name right now.
Gotcha.
But I know
That
a lot,
name
I
needs
know a
to
lot
be
of people.
uncovered.
I know a lot. Well, I know a lot of people. It's out in the open.
You're right. Right.
I just can't remember what his name is. It
I'd
Bill something?
I'd love to talk. I'd love to have him in here and
Okay.
talk about this because that's wild. And the fact that it's a detriment on the voting process. It's a huge detriment on the voting process. When I heard about that there were actual dead people voting in, I mean, we've heard about this.
Well, I mean, look at Sabina Matos' signature pages.
Right.
We know,
100%.
like we've been saying that stuff happens for 3 years, and
Yeah.
then finally it happens out in the open, and then everybody's just like, eh.
Well, people were like, "Oh yeah, maybe that happens," or that sounds like a cool story, and
But
then
we
it's
caught
actually
it.
there. Yes,
But
exactly.
we caught it,
Yeah,
right? But
Mhm.
how many of those names? Because they didn't ever review all the names again. How many of those people said they didn't sign that those signatures got accepted?
Mm-hmm.
It was so much more than just dead people on there. There were people who got their signatures on there. They said they never signed,
Right.
or their mother never signed.
That's
those,
scary right there.
Those signatures still got accepted.
Yeah, that's scary right there. I mean, talk about identity fraud. You know what
Bingo.
I mean? You know,
Is she in trouble?
Bingo.
right,
Where did all that go?
right, and that's another
Nobody
thing.
hears anything about it anymore.
That is another thing. When a lot of this shit gets found out, where is the prosecution for this? Where's the fine at least?
Well, if
Fine
you,
these people
if you
at
wanna
the
know who,
very least.
If you want to know who has the power to do that, it's the AG.
Right, the Attorney General. Yeah, right. On the federal level, or if it happens in the state, the Attorney General of Rhode Island. And I heard much favorable things. I'm being sarcastic for anyone that's not catching that about that person.
Well, all our officials are just wonderful.
They
None
are.
of them are corrupt.
No. Pocketing money, taking that.
Key in cars.
Key in cars. Yeah. Key in cars, getting fights. Although I don't know what that was about. That sounded more on a propaganda end. I think that happened like 2 years ago. There was a Senate person. Can't remember his name. I'm not sure what happened. I don't want to get too far in. I don't want to speak on something that I don't know too much about. But I know there was a lot of controversy between something to do with voting, policies, and all this stuff. And it seems like it's getting very tense inside the House. Dan McKee, Governor Dan McKee, who I don't know what happened with that voting because there's no way that he won in the fashion that he did, in my opinion. We definitely have better candidates that were standing up. I think, in my opinion, I totally would have been all right if I think it was Chung from Cranston. We would have been better off with that guy.
Fung.
Fung,
Alan
sorry.
Fung.
Yep, Alan Fung. We would have been better off with that guy at the very least than this guy, Dan McKee. I'm trying to be good, ladies and gentlemen. Trying to be good. Trying to be professional with my opinions here. But and I don't trust Smiley either. I didn't trust Alorza. You know what I'm saying? Raimondo, forget about it. You know what I mean? Now first of all, the Obama administration endorsed her, so that's a red flag for me, regardless. You know what I mean? I'm ranting again.
Well, her nice little promotion has to do
Yeah,
with
her
everything she did here.
Yeah, her nice little promotion. Also, she also blockaded a lot of the dispensaries over. I think her husband or someone involved with her was doing that out. I don't know, North Kingston somewhere, Exeter. I don't remember where it is or was exactly, but I know that she has something to do with that. Yeah, Rhode Island. Jesus.
We often say we're the test state because
Yeah, we're a
so
blueprint.
small.
Right.
It's
right.
so easy to roll out things here, and that's exactly. I mean, look at the green energy. Don't even get me started on that. But
Yeah.
we are a blueprint.
Right. Total blueprint. And I thought the New York government was corrupt, or LA government was corrupt. Rhode Island's corrupt.
We speak in terms of mafia when we we
Yeah,
like
I
when
still
we talk
think
about.
I still think our state holds on to a lot of that aspect. I mean, not for nothing. Was it not CNC? I think I'm forgetting his name. Was it CNC? He died not too long ago.
He died not too long ago.
Couple years ago.
Well, more than a couple years ago.
Yeah. I wouldn't say Rhode Island was completely non-corrupt, but it definitely wasn't in the state that it was in today. You know what I'm saying? And looking to where it's actually going, and then we see how our border is and how, all of these illegal immigrants are being flown out to these different areas, especially New York, with their governor now complaining to the Biden administration, saying, "Hey, we can't handle this," and then they were all in favor of it 4 or 5 years ago, saying, "Oh, the border, putting a border up is racist. Putting a border up is anti-immigration. Putting a border up is, anti-freedom of America." Whereas we're seeing our freedoms being completely taken away. We see people being wiped out of social media, is now being brought back on because we have what seems to be and appears to be people that are more pro-speech, more pro-human, rather than the anti-human that we're seeing. Shout outs to Klaus Schwab. WF, World Economic Forum, not the WF, not the WWF, but the World Economic Forum, and Bill Gates and all these people that are completely anti-human. We're seeing an excruciating power struggle between the common folk, the people, the taxpayer, and then these institutions and alphabet organizations. So
it's a weaponized government.
It definitely is weaponized. So I wanted to say this too, is that in recent Colorado and Maine took Trump off without any charges that have been brought against. I mean, charges have been brought against him, but no, he hasn't been tried for it. Like it's still going on. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't been accused of it. He's being accused of it, but he hasn't been arrested for it.
And it's straight election interference. Everything that happens in an election year is about the election. I don't care what anybody says. If it happens in an election year, it has to do with the election. But actually, from what I understand, Trump is back on the Colorado ballot.
Is he?
Yes.
How did I didn't hear that part.
Yeah.
He was able to get that. Well, I mean,
from what I understand,
if the Supreme Court has been wishy-washy with a lot of issues, some good, some bad. I just don't see how Colorado or any of these states being able to do that. They're trying to use the Confederate, the 14th Amendment of the Confederacy during the the Civil War, and they're trying to use that against Trump.
Well, they tried to do it here. They tried to.
They tried to take him off.
Yeah, they did. They did, but it was thrown out in a federal court.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So they can't even kick him off here. We need those 1,000 signatures if you want your candidate on the ballot.
Right.
Whoever that is.
And how many does he have in Rhode Island?
Last I saw was 51.
51. And we're like,
I know there are more signatures out there than that because I know of people who have signature pages.
Who's controlling the signatures also?
Okay, so that's a whole other ballgame.
Because let's get into that, because I know that. So I had Paul Riani in here not too long ago, and he was telling me that that's how I learned that you needed 1,000 signatures in order to even get on the ballot. I didn't know that prior. I thought you could just say, "Hey, I'm running.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm here."
Yeah.
But you got to get 1,000 believers behind you, which is good. I mean, I guess because that holds some integrity that you got something here, and I get that. But when he was in here, he was explaining. And forgive me, Paul, because I see you in the chat room. First of all, shout outs to everybody that's in the chat. I do see y'all: Joshua, Hartman, Sheila, Paul, Rihanna. Shout outs to everybody that's viewing. I can't see everybody right yet, but shout outs to everybody, and I appreciate y'all on all the platforms: Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. I just went. That's how my mind goes. I just go all the way around. But he was in here, Paul Rihanna. And when he was getting signatures, they were trying to tell him that the signatures that he was getting, they're invalid. That's an invalid signature. That person doesn't exist, or somewhere along the lines of that. And I was like, well, how are they verifying it? If you're and he's saying that him and shout out to Kiera, that him and his people were out there physically getting these signatures, and you're physically getting these signatures from people. How are they not verifying it? And they said that they would, I guess, verify it in their database with signatures.
It's the voter roll.
Yeah.
Basically, it's if your signature has to be from a registered voter, so they
Right.
have to be registered to vote in.
And that's fair. That makes sense.
In the area that you're running, in the air, like so in your town or
In the district, yeah.
yes. So if they live outside of that area, that is an invalid signature.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was
'Cause-
running for.
A whole other ball game,
Right.
But like if you're a part of a district, it has to be in that district.
Roger that.
If I would think governor, I don't know if it has to be district. It can be statewide, and you just have to make sure they're a registered voter. So if somebody signs and they're not a registered voter, that's going to be an invalid signature.
Right.
I think there are a couple other things that they look at with that. Whether it's they should be verifying the way the signature looks, but
Mm-hmm.
I listen.
I mean, I get that. It makes sense. I find that to be, yeah, okay, if we're gonna do, if we're gonna make sure that the voting is going correctly, the signature should be correct. I totally get that.
But that's
but they I think it was actually Kiera that was in here with Paul last time too that was saying that she signed it and they were telling her that her own signature wasn't even valid. So I'm like,
So if it's a signature match issue, Sarah has a story for you.
Okay.
But it's very valid for everybody.
Yeah. So
making a lot of headway here. Love it.
when I went to, this is maybe 2 years ago, I had a lot of questions for my local clerk.
Yeah.
And I signed something in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is my sig. She saw me sign something. It was just a paper. It was just like an index card.
Mhm.
I was just trying to make a point. So
Okay.
I signed something in front of her, and and I said, okay, so look up my signature in the database. And it was from when I was 18 years old. It was really bubbly and flowy and right? Because I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm much older.
Mm-hmm.
My signature looks different. And she said, I would never accept your signature. And I said, but you just saw me sign it.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I had a stroke and I can't, and I'm left-handed, and I had a stroke on my left side and my signature looks a little wonky?
Mm.
Or, something happens to me and I'm sick and my signature doesn't look right. Or you just, in life, you change some things, some aspects of your signature are going to change.
Yeah.
What are we looking at? Because you actually saw me sign this and my S looks a little different. So you're not going to accept my signature.
There's a whole
So-
process to training for signature verification.
It's a
It's
little
actually
wonky.
very detailed if you actually train for signature verification.
Okay.
Nobody here goes through that.
Is that when they're trying to line things up and all that stuff? Like they get real intricate like that? But being a witness to someone signing isn't enough.
Apparently.
You're physically witnessing someone sign.
And she
That's not
said,
enough.
I would never accept your signature. And I said, well,
But they never get updated. But hey, you've had ballots. They must have accepted it at some point
Right.
since then. So how much are they verifying? But I mean, that's a huge problem.
Is it just one? Is it a process that just goes through one person at a time?
What do you mean?
So for instance, if I'm going to get my name on a ballot and have these signatures, or if I'm going to do the same process that you did and show a signature, trying to prove my signature, does it just go through that one person, or is there like a process? Does it get like a second opinion?
So if you look at the Sabina Matos issue, it was for the area in which she was submitting signatures. So if they were signatures from that town, it goes to the town clerk, and the town clerk goes and looks at those signatures, and that's where some of them got thrown out.
Okay.
But then it goes to the Board of Elections to
Right.
be looked at after, which they didn't.
So wait, so Sabina's case was that she had a signature that was outside of her district?
No, well, I don't know. I'm sure there were there was a possibility of some of those being on there. But what happened was the town clerk noticed that there were people who were dead that signed from that town or that district or that area, and they flagged it as a problem.
Really?
Yes,
How the
Hey, coffins open up in election times, don't you know?
I guess so.
And listen, I'll be the first to say, two wings, same bird. It's not one side.
Right. Yeah, of course. 100%. Yeah. There's definitely fraud on both sides. The key is to make sure that there's none of it. You know what I mean?
I don't care who's doing it. It needs to stop.
It just needs to stop.
Yeah.
Because hypothetically, let's just say Donald Trump did this, right? And the tides are turned. We would still be in a predicament whereas our elections are not fairly run, being fairly run.
I'd be sitting in this same chair having this same
Yeah,
conversation. with you.
100%. So would I. Because people think I'm this Trump supporter and all this stuff. I'm like, listen, I support America's future. I support where she's going. I support our right to free speech, our Second Amendment to protect ourselves. I support the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I support free and fair elections. If that happens to be Donald Trump that runs the country, so be it. If it happens to be Vivek, so be it. If it happens to be Bill Gates, we don't want Bill Gates burgers. I'm not going to vote for the guy. So be it. As long as that election is free and fair. Bill Gates, you're not gonna get it, buddy. You get another pie in the face. You ever seen that video? It's a hilarious video.
I love that video.
Good video.
I think it was like in the 90s. Some guy comes around the corner and gets him with a good pie.
Glasses and all.
Yep, glasses and all. So yeah, I mean, I don't care who's on the ballot, and to be honest with you, I don't trust any of these politicians as far as I could throw them for the most part who actually even get in there. I like a lot of things that Trump did. There aren't too many things that I like how he's gone about it, but we're not paying $200 billion 4 or 5 years ago over to a war that we shouldn't have been involved in. We're not being threatened by China, North Korea, Russia on a nuclear weapon level. You got countries that are saying, we'll just nuke you. We'll just throw these new forms of artillery that we have. Not artillery, supersonic missiles now. We don't even have them. America doesn't have them. What does that say?
Right.
And Afghanistan, how we left Afghanistan. Shout outs to Biden administration.
Elections have consequences.
Yeah,
We say that a
absolutely,
lot.
100%. This is what we're dealing with. We're like, oh, this is the better guy. He, no mean tweets. Listen, I'd rather deal with the mean tweets. First of all, they're comical half the time. And what was mean about them? Anyway, I'm going off a little bit
That's all right.
onto that
fine.
level.
But you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was afraid we didn't want 4 more years of Trump because we'd end up in a war. We're in 2.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think the third one's not coming,
Mm-hmm.
you better be paying attention to something other than what you're paying attention to.
Yeah.
Because this isn't over.
I mean, look, the fire that started between Palestine and Israel, and look at the damage that has already been done in Iran. So, someone's claiming that it happened in Iran. I think we may have something to do with it because they've already bombed some of our troops with their drones. We're all on the Alaskan, near the Alaskan border. There's Chinese chips. Well, lack of those, but Chinese ships rather. Confronting American ships.
Yep.
So I mean, we're playing with fire. Not the American people necessarily playing with fire, but the people who don't even realize the voting. The voting is a consequence. We're getting the wrong people in there, and this is a socialist movement. They're not. Here's another thing too, and I don't say this enough on this podcast when I do talk about. I'm probably going to get kicked off of Facebook right now, but who cares? It's still on Rumble. By the way, I'm going to just pause right here real quick. Go to Rumble, rumble.com/the true perspective, the TRU perspective. That is the main area that is broadcasted out of, although I use Facebook, I use YouTube, but they're garbage platforms. Don't go on Rumble and also add the true perspective on Spotify. It's also on iHeartRadio and Apple. I don't know if they both still have me on there, but I shout them out because that's where the podcast goes up. But I don't say this enough about the Democratic side. The Biden administration and this woke Democrat liberalism, they aren't true Democrats. They aren't true liberalists. They are socialists. Mm-hmm. The Democrat that you can make an example for would be RFK Jr. He'd be a perfect example of being a liberal Democrat, which is he's probably more conservative than he is liberal, considerably.
Only if you believe in climate change, or else you should die.
Well, that too. I mean, yeah, like I said, but I'd rather hear what he's saying and how he's saying it rather than, he's against the war. He's against the war. His policy on Second Amendment,
It's not good.
I wouldn't. It's not good. The whole global climate thing. I just think he needs to have the right conversation with somebody to change his mind on that.
The children's health defense, all of the medical freedom stuff,
Yeah.
100%.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
right
his
there.
niche right there. Everything else he needs to leave alone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think too, this comes back to we're at the point where you can't be a one issue voter.
No, you
Right.
cannot.
You have to look
Right.
at the whole picture.
Right.
And if you're just going to be talking about 2A, which again, I'm the same as Megan. I'm a constitutional person. I'm a conservative at heart, and I don't want anybody to take that away. That's my right.
Right.
But you can't just be a one-issue voter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the point where you need to look at the whole spectrum of what you just described of what's going on in our nation as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to represent all of those issues for you? And again, medical freedom, yes, that's a great issue as well, but you can't have this one issue voter anymore. You have
Right.
to have someone that's going to look at the whole picture and who's going to support your constitutional rights.
Okay.
Because this is what it's coming down to.
Right.
It's not about this one issue anymore. Who's going to be able to stand in the fold? Who's going to be able to stand in the gap and be able to stand up for the people?
Right.
That's what it's about.
It's all connected, every single bit of it, And one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain is, the patriot is a scarce man in the beginning of change.
Mm-hmm.
He's hated and feared and scorned.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the time comes, everybody else is going to join.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating at first to be that person on the front line. It's tough to be in the position her and I are in.
Right.
A lot of times we're hated.
Yeah.
For
You're doing
wanting,
such a bad job.
for just asking questions.
Right. Right.
When have we ever been hated for asking questions?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the fundamental part of the of having the right to free speech is being able to debate, ask questions, and it's not always about coming to an agreement. You can agree to disagree.
100%.
Absolutely.
It's
But don't call me a name just to get your point
Right,
across.
right.
Don't call me an election denier. Don't call me,
right.
Well, they think it hurts our feelings.
Right.
It
Jan
doesn't.
Sixer.
It doesn't hurt my feelings. Honestly,
yeah.
I think it's funny, but that's where it comes from. And anything, medical freedom, the parental rights. It's always about name calling.
Because they can't
Mm-hmm.
they
Because
can't
they
fight the
don't have it.
message.
Right.
They can't argue with your points.
I mean, even online, when I'm online and representing our fair elections and education, like on X, let's just say, because that's where the battlefield is. There's a lot of shills, right, that are
Yeah.
going to come at me because I'm posting something that's an article, or I'm posting something that might not have to do with elections, but like Megan says, everything that is the foundation of all the other issues that we're fighting against.
Mm-hmm.
And I might post something else that has to do with immigration and illegal aliens coming over the border, and they'll negate me to that's not a real source. You're not sourcing the right information. Blah blah
Right.
blah blah blah. Okay, fine. Then tell me your side of the story and give me something. Don't give me a Providence Journal. Don't give me a Boston Globe.
That's all they got.
Mm-hmm.
It's all they got.
Give me
though.
the actual document.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want.
Yep. And almost all the time, it's I don't want to. You could go research it for yourself.
Yes.
Well,
that's
if
what
you-
I get a lot.
Yep, I get that all
or
the time.
crickets.
Or crickets. I get that all the time. On other platforms, I don't know what's going on outside. Must be about IDs or something. They hear us talking. No, it's this. It's an interesting. It's actually the tide has turned on X, formerly known as Twitter. If anyone that still doesn't know that, Elon Musk took that over, which was a huge thing. Like the liberal far left was completely losing their mind, and the fact like, oh, we're gonna have all this Nazi stuff show up and all this white nationalism show up and all this. None of that shows up. None of it. Not even any of it shows up. Meanwhile, the former owners of Twitter had terrorist organizations on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the Taliban was on there. I don't know if they're still on there because Elon Musk has been notified. I heard a recent it was maybe a couple months back where that was announced to him. He was like, "Hey, you still got the Taliban on there? You gonna take them off?" I don't know. Terrorist organizations probably shouldn't have access to that sort of. But there needs to be a clear indication of what is a terrorist organization, what isn't a terrorist organization.
Mm-hmm.
Terrorist organization obviously is the Taliban because that's what they do. That's their MO. But people who are speaking their opinion, and not just opinion, but also posting facts, and we saw that Facebook was a huge culprit of that, knocking everybody off that was posting anything about COVID,
Mm-hmm.
anything that
and anything 2020 election related.
Anything.
Anything.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like you were doing that, you were flagged, banned, taken down,
Mm-hmm.
your pages were deleted or whatever. And you know, and they still do that. I mean, they're still doing that, but X, formerly known as Twitter, is now more on the pro speech side.
Yep.
Whereas, I mean, he said it himself. Elon Musk said it himself in an interview. It's like if you have an opposing opinion, and you're not threatening anybody's life, you're not threatening any type of harm or anything like that, doing anything illegal, if you're abiding by the law, as far as speech,
Mm-hmm.
well, then, you know, if it opposes my opinion, I allow it.
Right.
He allows it. If it opposes the opposite's opinion, allowed.
Right.
So, because a lot of this information that's even allowed, even able to get online, people are hearing about all the child trafficking rings, the people who are involved in it, Epstein Island,
Mm-hmm.
which still is yet the list is still yet to come out. 150 names I think were released or something like that, or some other name. Stephen Hawking is a rumor of that. I'm like, come on.
That was all from just one case. That's one case, one victim. What was released yesterday, one case, one victim.
Stupid.
And there are hundreds of victims.
Right.
And
I'm not calling that case stupid.
No, I hear you. And there's been a list out for a very long time, actually.
Yep.
All these names were just confirmed to have been correct.
What's that child actor's name? He's come out. I mean, he's had documentaries. I'm surprised no one's offed him because of. He was a child actor. He played in Lost Boys.
Yeah, it's. I know exactly who you're.
Anyone
about.
in the
Chris,
chat?
It's the Chris's, isn't it? Chris's?
Yes, one of them killed himself.
Yep, my husband knows. He's
long
listening.
time ago. Anyway, he's talked about that. He's talked about how it is, what it is like in Hollywood, and politicians are involved in Hollywood. They're all involved in it. They're Malachians. And anyone that's not aware of what Malachian means, look that up. Malachians, they're ritualistic child sacrifice, human sacrifice rather. And I know, like, oh, here he goes talking about child sacrifice.
Corey Feldman, the
Corey
Corys.
Feldman.
Thank
Yep.
There you go. Thanks, Joe.
But it exists. Again, I'm going off on a rant again.
It's really hard not to go off on a rant because again
do that a lot.
We do, and
Yeah.
it's
I do it a lot here all the time.
connected. It's all connected because you want to talk about Epstein. Look at who was protecting Epstein. People who are elected officials, government officials, people who are high up. Why are they allowed to protect him? Because they've secured their place with elections.
Right, 100%.
It's just it's all connected.
We still good on time?
I have no idea
We're
what time
an
it
hour.
is.
We're an hour and a half in. It's
Okay.
and it's 6:53, so we're good. Yeah, everything. That is the thing. Everything's connected. You can connect child trafficking with the border.
Yes.
You can connect the border with election fraud. You
Yes.
can connect election fraud with January 6th. You can connect January 6th with all of these ridiculous policies that go against free speech, go against Second Amendment, all of this stuff.
Yes.
It's all but the thing is that people need to understand that you need to follow the fucking money. Because if you
Yeah.
don't
I
follow
was just
if you don't
thinking
follow
money.
the money, you're not going to know who the players are, who the enemy players are.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't think I think it's widely known for anyone that's had this fire lit within them to get involved. COVID woke up a lot of more people that may have been already on the fringe, kind
Yes,
of like
yes.
just kind of wanting to stay away from all the politics stuff, and I totally get it. But then it now they're attacking your family. They're attacking you now. They're attacking your wallet. When they're saying, I loved it when people were saying like, oh, mandates aren't force.
It's coercion.
It's super. Yeah.
That is force.
If they're telling you that if you don't get this shot or if you don't wear this mask, we fire you, that is force. It may be a light word saying, oh, well, we're not going to make you, but either you do this or you lose your career.
I was kicked out of stores.
Yeah,
Me too.
I almost got in fights.
Me too.
Someone wanted to fight me
It's crazy.
because I had the stupid thing on my chin. I was like,
your face diaper.
Yeah.
Your face diaper that doesn't work.
and I was like, what? Do something. And and then they scurry off like little rats. You know what I'm saying? It's pathetic. People like that.
And I came from the medical field, so I can look at that and I'm just this isn't 2 + 2 = 16. People, like, it doesn't work. The particle for the virus, the supposed virus, the particle is so small. It's like throwing sand at a chain link fence. You're not going to stop anything. But hey, put your mask on and breathe in your putrid breath and your waste that you emit. There's a reason why we don't rebreathe our own, emissions.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's straight insanity.
And there were many. That's some of the doctors that were getting wiped off of social media in the far beginning. Was like, look, these masks aren't going to do anything. They're actually just supposed to stop like fluid hitting, like actual fluid hitting your face or something like that.
Or
along those
surgical,
lines.
whatever. Yeah.
Right.
And then you look at a Spanish flu. Everybody thinks Spanish flu was Spanish flu. Spanish flu was a bacterial pneumonia caused by wearing masks. But hey, we didn't learn anything.
It was. And it wouldn't have been as deadly as it was if people didn't have the correct medical care.
Yes.
But they kept telling people to put masks on, so it got worse.
Yep.
And people who had the pneumonia put masks on.
Yep.
Not to laugh. I mean, a lot of people died.
But it's crazy.
But that's the craziness behind it. Yeah.
Because you have to laugh, or else you're gonna go freaking insane. I swear. But
Well,
everything's a hydra.
Yes, I was just going to say that's
Yeah.
something that you say a lot.
Hydra.
It's a hydra.
It's you cut off one head, or you think you understand this, and then you get this other thing thrown at you that you just it's insane.
Well, even with going back to elections, like we think, okay, we got this figured out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we know what's going on. We figured this out. Nope, something else happens, and you're like, what the heck?
Right.
Never even thought about that. I never even thought about, well, we have followed the money, which is a big issue in Rhode Island. But some of the other things I've never thought about with our government getting involved, our state government getting involved with federal agencies. And even this past election that we just had for 2023 for the special election, you know what I'm going to say? Yeah. So the Department of Justice actually came and oversaw elections.
They came in 2022 too.
Oh, that's right.
In Rhode Island?
Yeah, in Woonsocket,
Central Falls.
and Central Falls.
Interesting.
Yep. And they came in 2022. I did forget about that.
To do what?
To oversee
to
our
oversee.
election.
Monitor
them.
Interesting. The
And then-
Department of Justice.
And then CISA is got some involvement in Rhode Island as well.
CISA is
Oh, cybersecurity. I can't remember what the
Okay. Yeah,
acronym is.
Security Agency, Cyber Information Security Agency, or
Thank
something
you.
like that. Yeah.
sounds
Nice.
about right.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so they've been recently implicated with Judicial Watch, and they've done a lot of research and a lot of FOIAs on the whole censorship complex, they're calling it, for our elections. And what happened?
They're trying to find out.
They found out.
Okay, they found
that
out.
it took them this long.
Mm-hmm.
And they just dropped it, I think, a month ago, because I've been on it. And if you go to Judicial Watch, there's a big article, or if you follow us on Facebook or if you follow us on X, you can. I've been posting a lot about it because I think it's interesting, because CISA, what Megan was just saying, was here the day before our November election at Rhode Island College. Jim Langevin, our former congressman who stepped down recently, is the head of the cybersecurity institute that he's trying to get, that he started at Rhode Island College.
Mm-hmm.
And they had CISA come in, who has been implicated in this Judicial Watch expose with implicating that CISA is part of restricting our speech for elections
Okay.
in 2020. So CISA was here the day before our elections. We had the DOJ here on the day of our elections. It's just very curious to me that we're a very small state and we have all this attention coming to us. You know, why?
And CIS has been called out on the House floor in Washington or in D.C. with like, it's not Lauren Boebert, it's the other pretty one. She brought it up. She had like this nice billboard about it and everything, and she was talking about CISA and their involvement and the way that they do the communications and everything like that. And it's again, why Rhode Island? You know, it's that blueprint thing all over again.
Right. So when my point was when we start thinking
You
like,
good
oh,
on-
we've got this figured out.
Come on, Mer.
Nope.
When we think we've got this whole election, all right, we figured it out. We know the players. We know what's going on. Something like this, like the Department of Justice comes in, or CISA's coming in and doing God knows what, because all the officials were there. I have pictures of it.
Yep.
You know, like our Secretary of State was there taking a picture with the CISA director. So it's very curious to me.
Yeah, Anna Paulina Luna. Thanks, Joe.
So it appears that they may be working together
Yes, that's my point.
and making sure that
They're suppressing or monitoring our speech.
And there's a lot that we're not going to get into to talk to you today. Like,
Sure.
It makes my head explode to understand connections with first responder information, with like all kinds of stuff like that. Like, there's so much that's connected, it would blow your mind. But I mean, again, why Rhode Island?
right. Was the Congresswoman Anna Luna?
Anna Paulina Luna.
Anna,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my husband.
Okay. All right. Looks like he posted it. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
He's on top. That's good.
He's
Nice.
good for that stuff.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
You know, and you want to talk about money a little bit more. We Americans, our government is just busybodies. We have been involved in so many elections in other countries. It's insane. 2014, Ukraine. Do you know what happened in 2014 in Ukraine?
Tell me.
We basically usurped an election and implemented
in Ukraine, right?
in Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
No name McCain. I can't stand him. What a traitor.
I was gonna actually bring up Weapons Depot, but
So they instilled somebody in that position. Ukraine is controlled by America. You want to talk about money. When you start following money and you look at FTX.
I was just going to say, you know a lot about that.
That was a rabbit hole I went down.
Yeah.
Which ended up being far deeper than even, again, we go back to our really smart friend because he understands it far better. But FTX, Ukraine invested money into FTX. FTX funneled that money, and that money ended up going to Democratic candidates.
FTX is
It's a cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yep.
That money ended up going to
A lucky guy.
yeah, right. To Democratic candidates, guys. Ukraine was given money from our federal government and then gave money to FTX. So our tax-paying federal money went to FTX to pay for Democratic Party election things. Our taxes paid for that. So ask yourself, why do we keep giving Ukraine money? Why does Zelensky basically just have his knee on our government's throat and can demand anything he wants? Ask yourself why.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while now, just putting it out there for everyone, for other people to think about, is what's Zelensky have on the American government?
100%. 100%.
What's he have on the American government that's allowing him to get these hundreds of billions of dollars sent over to his country?
So that made us dig more. And that's where we found what we call Smurfs. And Smurfs are people who, across the country and in Rhode Island, I started going down this rabbit hole and it became a whole ball game that it's so convoluted and complex to get to understand. I'm gonna write it in crayon for you. Basically, if you've ever donated to a Democratic or Republican Party, most of the time you donate through what's called Act Blue or Win Red. If you donate to a Republican candidate, typically it's going to be to Win Red, and Act Blue is Democratic. And what has happened is there has been money funneled through this, and the FEC doesn't even understand what's going on because we have people that we know that have actually spoken to the people of the FEC to explain these things to them, and they couldn't even answer the questions. They couldn't even understand their own system. But money is being funneled through these people's names to the point where there are elderly people in this state in their like 80s who would literally have to sit at their computer every 20 minutes for 2 years. That's how many donations they make. And it's logged. Like the time, the date, the amount. It's $20 here, it's $5, it's $100, it's $25. So people have actually gone to these people and said, you know, did you donate thousands of dollars in all this time frame? Like every 20 minutes, it's logged that you've donated. They're like, no. Have you noticed any money missing? No. So where is this money coming from, and why is it being funneled through people who have no idea? And I'm talking.
It's just attaching their name to this.
I'm talking lots of money.
Yeah.
Lots of money.
Oh, I
like
bet.
from Rhode Islanders to Warnock in wherever, or Fetterman in Pennsylvania. Why are they sending money to these other countries? Because they're not. So who's sending this money?
Wait, are they just taking random people's names
It's
and
like a
just sending?
slush. It's like a these people don't even know. They don't even know. It's just a funnel of money.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And it's so much more complex than what I'm explaining, because
Right.
there's a certain amount of money that has to be refunded. There's all this information. So I can't give you a number, even though we have numbers. I can't give you an accurate number because numbers have to be subtracted. Like it's a mess.
Yeah.
But it's insane. They literally just use these people to funnel money through their name.
Well, who are they just random people?
Typically, they're elderly people.
Elderly people.
So, for
Gotcha.
instance, there was one person at a nursing home in Smithfield.
We have no idea. Okay.
I mean, we have guesses.
I mean,
but
yeah, right. Right. There's probably educated guesses for
Yeah.
sure. But obviously it's somewhere whoever's pushing the button on sending the dollar amount is.
And they do low amounts to keep it under the radar, so
Gotcha.
$25.
Okay.
You know,
but it's like
all day, every day for
Gotcha.
literally years. It's impossible for somebody to sit there and push that button that many times.
right. So it's automated. Has to be automated. You're not going to have 1,000 people behind a computer screen just pressing buttons. I mean, you could, I guess, but no. We have artificial intelligence. Of course not. It would be automated.
It's interesting.
Yep. Do we know where the money's going?
Well, it goes to those candidates.
It goes to the candidates, but we don't know where the money's coming from. Interesting. Or there's an idea where the money is coming from, but it's lots of money that's being... Now, what are the well, I guess there's no repercussions to these people unless it's like because if they can do that, then they could send money to other organizations.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What are the repercussions in being framed with that? You know where I'm going with that?
Well,
for instance, you donated, right? You
Yep.
donated to whatever, and somehow your information gets grabbed, right? By identity theft by this
Elderly
entity.
abuse.
You have no idea. This person has no idea. Well, yeah, of course they would go elderly because they're not looking into their shit anymore.
And they do donate.
And they do donate. Right.
Because when you go to them and you're like, oh, did you I donated a couple of times. You're like, yeah, like $30,000, $60,000, $100,000, $300,000. No, I don't have that kind of money. Of course you don't. You live on Social Security.
Right.
Like,
right. Shit. That's like fuck. That's wild. That's interesting.
So there's that, right? So there are people who are Smurfs in this state who have no idea. So I highly recommend anybody listening log onto the FEC website and do a name search for yourself. Just see. You know? It's not going to hurt anything.
Right.
And then you want to talk about personal information. Let's before we, I mean, if we should talk about anything, it should probably be the ERIC system before we end anything.
The
if we
ERIC
are
system?
the Electronic Registration Information Center. That's what that ERIC stands for. And we use that in Rhode Island as a way to keep our voter rolls clean, keep our voter rolls pristine, the gold standard, right? And ERIC has a sordid background, which Megan can get into a little bit. But Rhode Island, now there's been a lot of politicizing with ERIC recently because we have found out over the last year, originally ERIC was in 33 states, but a lot of states have pulled out of ERIC because of the person that runs ERIC or has run ERIC, he's recently stepped down, David Becker, is a highly politicized individual that has a very leftist, partisan view of how the United States should be run. And he started ERIC back in 2012. In Rhode Island, I don't remember the exact year. We got involved very early on with ERIC.
Okay.
So we've been involved for at least 10 years.
Okay.
But David Becker worked for the DOJ, and while he worked for the DOJ, he was unable to keep his position without being spoken to on occasions and complained about on multiple occasions for not having a partisan view of anything. He's extremely anti-Trump. He is extremely left. Everything he does is left-leaning. Very, 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 very partisan person who creates a system for all of our voter rolls.
Interesting. So there's no oversight of this person, right?
No.
I mean, yeah, and quite
right. So
goodness.
why ERIC is such a big deal is because that's what Rhode Island uses for a checks and balances for the voter rolls, right?
I'm gonna pause you real quickly because I think we're dead on Facebook right now.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Your husband
Smurfs.
just
With the
messaged.
Smurfs.
He messaged, you guys went dead for about 20 seconds just as you were talking about Smurfs, FYI, but I don't see the video rolling right now.
Oh
so
no.
give me a second.
God. He said we're back.
We're back?
Yep.
All right. I don't see video moving though.
Mine is.
Is it?
Yep.
Maybe it's just my end.
Oh no, we're frozen.
Are we?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
He says you've been back. He can hear us.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you,
He
can
said
you
audio anyway.
audio?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
So
First time that's happened.
I'm gonna get you in trouble.
I know.
I'm
Listen,
always in
this-
trouble.
This happened. Something similar has happened before, where I was broadcasting off of Facebook and TikTok. TikTok wiped me out because we
Oh.
were talking about Biden and the election fraud, and election fraud. Yeah, video's just frozen. That's weird. Well, anybody out there, if the video's frozen, I'm not sure what's going on or how to reset it without taking us off completely. I don't want to do that because the conversation's still hot. So if you could bear with the frozen video and you could still hear us, you can still chime in. I will be checking the comment section periodically on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Most of you are interacting on Facebook, so that's good. But go to Rumble, because it looks like it's frozen on there too. Rumble.com/the true perspective, the TRU perspective. And we're going to keep going. So, yeah.
Oh, all right. So, anyway, so talking about the ERIC system and David Becker, which Megan was just explaining, and how we're using ERIC to clean our voter rolls.
Mm-hmm.
But ERIC is also, we know that that's not true because a lot of states have pulled out. They've politicized ERIC because a lot of states have pulled out because they don't clean the voter rolls. They,
So the question shouldn't be why should we get out of ERIC? It should be did we ever get into ERIC to begin with? Because the NVRA said that the voter rolls needed to be maintained. That means that our governing officials, our state officials, should be cleaning our voter rolls, but
Right.
instead they outsourced to ERIC.
and we know from, so we talked about public records requests, right? So we've done APRAs in Rhode Island, and we've found out that through emails that have been released to us, that our Secretary of State is sharing private information, private identifying information with other groups that you can't you can't figure out.
Who's who? Right.
So they're sharing your full name, your full date of birth, your address.
I'm gonna drop something here that I haven't even said on our own show.
Oh.
I'll read the email.
Okay.
Okay.
But I gotta
Exclusive,
find it. Go ahead.
ladies and gentlemen.
Your voter history, the last 4 digits of your social security, and your phone number. They're sharing that information, Eric, in Rhode Island.
Eric.
If your state's in Eric, that's is what they're doing. They're sharing this information with another organization that David Becker is in charge of, called CEIR, the Center for Election and Innovation and Research.
CEIR.
That's
David
correct.
Becker.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard of Zuckerbucks, right?
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg. That's
CTCL.
CTCL.
Yeah.
Civic Tech
And Civic Life.
and Civic Life. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are 2 groups that were heavily involved in our elections, especially here. They actually gave, again, I go back to private funding. CTCL gave money for our elections. And that's Mark Zuckerberg.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I think we got like $600,000.
600,000.
Something like that in 2020.
Wow.
Yep.
And man, and this guy, he was
In blue leaning towns and,
Right.
and cities. That's where that money went.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was for PPE.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And he was at a Senate hearing. I believe. Oh man, I can't remember that damn senator's name. He was really good because he was drilling. And Mark Zuckerberg looked like he first of all he looked scared because I don't think he's ever been questioned like that in his life. But he had to attend because he was subpoenaed, I believe.
Yep.
And the question was, well, I don't think this portion of him was questioned as far as like where his organization was sending money to, what was it called?
CTCL.
CTCL.
Mm-hmm.
But he was being questioned on whether or not he was aware that Facebook was doing censorship.
Yep.
And of course, he said, I have other people handling that. So I'm paraphrasing a lot of it, but that's basically what he was making it seem. He has to sign off on everything.
Yeah.
I get it that there's executives and there's other players a part of the organization, but ultimately he has to oversee. It's like the president. When a vote goes through Congress, he has to see the vote because he can veto it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Same thing.
so right. That's really interesting. I didn't know. I knew for a fact that Facebook and Zuckerberg fully aware of censorship because they were working alongside with Twitter at the time.
Yes.
No longer with Twitter now, thankfully. Twitter now X. But it's interesting that there's actual money being involved with voting, being involved
in our elections.
Right.
So they
as the FBI is telling them what to censor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you read the Twitter
yes,
files,
the
right?
That's,
and the
that's
Facebook
what that
files,
was.
right?
The FBI was
Yes.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. In the White House too, but mostly the FBI was in question when Zuckerberg was being questioned. Were you aware of the FBI being involved? Did they tell you? Did they coerce? I'm paraphrasing what was going on there. I'm writing in crayon also.
Yeah,
but go look that up. Zuckerberg Senate hearing, and he was being questioned on whether or not the FBI was involved with censorship. Yep.
Yeah.
And if
exactly.
anybody hasn't looked at the Facebook files and all of that stuff that was put out
Twitter files
by them, the Twitter files and all of that, I encourage you to read them. And if you don't want to read them, if you want to listen to them, my husband and I read every single one of them on our show. So each one, if you would, if you want, like I'm an audiobook kind of person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's a lot. So we spent time and we did that. And
Nice. Good.
check them out. Read them.
Yeah, hell yeah. Podcast Renegade Minds, right?
Yep. Renegade Minds on Rumble.
Can we talk about that too?
Yeah, we can talk about that for a little bit. I mean, that was all started. I mean, we kind of got off Eric a little bit, but that was all started because I was frustrated we were frustrated that
no one will listen.
no one wants to listen to what we have to say. Yeah, exactly. Everything that we found over the period of 3 years, nobody wants to touch it. So we decided to make our own platform. So my husband and I started Renegade Minds. So that's what we do. We talk about things that nobody wants to talk about.
Right.
And it started with interviews with Sara and various other people from our group, and we go into hard topics. We say things that get us kicked off of platforms. So Rumble is where we reside mostly.
Rumble is a free speech, free speech platform for sure.
Yeah.
Not as popular yet, but it is actually pretty popular because there's a lot of good podcasts on there. There's a lot of good just celebrity, I guess celebrity political interaction there, but not
a lot of alternative media.
Yes, and they actually, I mean, they have quite a variety.
Yeah.
You're going to get quite a variety, but yeah, Renegade Minds, you do talk about everything that way we talk about right here. This is the type of stuff that you bring up on your show, which is awesome. And there needs to be more of that. Because you said that people weren't listening to you, but where and when did the podcast actually begin? Like what was the fuel that people were saying people weren't listening to what was being said?
None of our data,
right?
None of our information, none of our experiences, none of the people who went through things, the things that we found when we went canvassing, when we, the personal information that's being shared that, Sara was mentioning, the emails that we have APRAs of emails, like Rob Rock, for example, will go to a town meeting, but then will blatantly lie to everybody in that meeting, and nobody hears anything different because it's what he said versus what we say. And yet, when we have a podcast, I can pull up something like this email that is signed by Rob Rock himself after he tells all these people that it doesn't provide personal information to the ERIC system. It literally says, regarding item 2, our office provides ERIC the following information for each voter: voter ID number, driver's license number, name, residential address, mailing address, date of birth, last activity date, last registration date, last 4 of the social security number, voter status, last vote date optional, phone number, email address, and original registration date. And it's signed by him, but he just literally said in front of people to their faces that they don't share this information. I can't even get, if I ask for a voter roll, I can't even get a date of birth anymore, but they're sharing this with ERIC. All we can get is a year of birth. They got rid of it. So when you have a 16-year-old going to get their driver's license and their permit, all of that information gets shared with a third party, the ERIC system. They are a private entity. They don't have to tell you who they share their information with, but they share it with CEIR, which is David Becker's other little brainchild.
Interesting.
And it's all get out the vote. It's a voter registration harvesting system.
So, hold on. You mean, so when you registered, did you say that when you register into the state, that information also gets transferred to this ERIC system?
So
how is that legal?
It's the Motor Voter Act. It's from the 90s, right? Isn't that like Bill Clinton or somebody?
So
Or
that
who is
act is, but what he's asking is sharing that private information.
Right.
That private information is actually a violation of federal law.
Yeah, it's a violation of the
Driver
Privilege Protection Act.
Yeah. So we know that and I'm gonna call them out on it the next time they do one of these discussion meetings, which they're doing at the end of this month,
27th, I believe,
in Richmond. And I highly encourage, if anybody's living in Rhode Island, to come join us and ask these very important questions.
Where is this?
Richmond or Hopkinton, I believe, is where it's going to be this
Public
time.
Library at 10 a.m.
The last one I know of was in Coventry.
I've been to 2 already.
Public library?
Yep.
If we get more information on it, I'll send it
Sure,
to you.
yeah, definitely. I'd
But
like to.
it's time to hold these people accountable because they're just lollygagging around, spreading information that's not true. And we know it's true because we have the emails.
I literally just read it verbatim to you.
Right. So it's a violation of federal law. And I called Rob Rock out the last time I saw him at another library event.
That was in Exeter. You did the Exeter one.
Yeah, there was one in Exeter in October. And I said to him, because he's saying, someone was like, oh, well, isn't Eric good? And this is a great thing. And they were the cheerleader. And Eric's like, oh, yes. Well, Eric is wonderful and this is all this great stuff. And I said, oh, that's just misinformation that they're telling you. And I immediately said, I didn't even raise my hand. I was trying to be very polite and because I didn't want to get kicked out.
I'm
but
the spicy
I've been sitting
one.
There,
She's the well-behaved usually.
No, because at the end of that hour and a half, I sat next to my two people because they know me and they're like, usually I'm pretty like vanilla. And I'm like, I'm gonna rip someone's throat out in a minute. I'm like I can't take the lying anymore.
Oh, I can't stand it.
So he's lying to these people, saying that everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And I immediately said, absolutely not. You're sharing private information with these people. You are sharing my private information. I never said you could share that. And I'm looking at him like I'm looking at you right now. And they immediately shut the meeting down.
All right, that's it. We're done.
So they didn't even want it. They couldn't even face the questioning on that.
No.
It was, but I felt so good after
Yeah,
that.
I know.
I
That's
was
like the Coventry one. I
I
was
was
so
like,
pumped
all right,
after.
let's go. And I want to get more people to come and hold these people accountable because they need to know that their narrative is failing.
Right.
We know.
And they're desperate. They're like a wounded animal.
They're going
corner.
around
Oh, yes.
to all these places in the state to try to defeat the narrative that everyth's fine.
gotta
We're the
fight
gold standard. Don't
disinformation.
worry about it. Our elections are fine.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Right.
Go back to sleep.
Right. Right.
Where we're going and we're
Try
like
to lull you to death.
we're going to these meetings and like, what about driver privilege cards? What about you sharing private information? What about these things? They're very important.
It took us 3 hours in Coventry to get them to finally admit that illegals can end up on the voter roll. But it's not legal. That's not what we're
You said
saying.
3 hours?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I said, but that's
We
not
have it
that's
all,
not the argument.
We have it all recorded.
We're not saying they legally end up on the
Were they
on the
doing
voter
like the
rolls.
dancing
Oh,
around?
yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
but there were
I
like
love it.
reflecting.
But
I
there were
love
like
it.
10
I
of
love
us. There were 10 of us coming at them from all different angles. I got threatened that day. I still can't believe I got threatened that day. I didn't even know until I
By,
read.
didn't want to tell
by an
you.
official or by...
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
our
yeah.
local official. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, so Eric, we need to get out of. I
Yeah, for sure.
can't stress it enough. People need to understand that they're sharing your private information. And like if you have teenagers that are 16, 17-year-old, they're, can get on the voter rolls
Yes.
because they do these voter drives at high schools.
Yep.
They're sharing that private your child's information with
information.
these other organizations.
What is the motivation behind that? Other than the fact that
Well,
they're
it's a voter drive. It's a voter registration drive. So basically, what happens is if you think about this for a second, let's drop back to Matos for just a 2nd. You don't just know dead people's names. You get those names from somewhere. Where do you get those names from? Right? So we go back to the voter rolls and needing to clean them up because the voter rolls is just a database of names of registered voters. If they are not removing dead people off the voter rolls, which they're not. I mean, they do, but they don't do it the way they're supposed to. If somebody moves out of state, that person is, I mean, I know people who have moved off my street who are still on our voter rolls. And they haven't lived on our street for like 5 years and they're still listed on our voter rolls.
Wow.
There are things like that all that are it's happening a lot. There are addresses on the voter rolls that are businesses, karate studios, nail salons, empty parking lots, car dealerships, things like that. Those are not domiciles. They shouldn't be on the voter rolls. Yeah. So when you get this list of information, if you just say, oh, this is a voter in my district, or that I can use their information so I can use their signature or I can use their whatever, but they're dead. That's where they get these names from. They get them from the voter rolls.
Right. So they're saying, the state is saying, Eric is great. Wow. Our voter rolls are fine. But when we canvassed in 2021, so we went like door to door just to ask people. We didn't care about who you voted. I don't care who you vote for.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about cleaning the voter rolls and making sure everybody that's on our
Is
voter roll
legitimate.
is legit.
Yeah.
Like, do they still live here? Did they die?
Right.
That kind of stuff. That's all we asked about. Every single precinct, and I live in a red district, was dirty. 30% dirty.
Yep.
Dirty. So
those are what we call phantom voters.
30% of the vote.
in one precinct, so I live in a precinct,
Yeah.
right? 30% of the people I canvassed
Yeah.
shouldn't have been there.
Wow. 30%?
Yeah.
And that's just her area.
That's
Holy
just mine.
shit.
And mine's red.
30% though.
So this
like,
doesn't
that's-
just happen in blue. This happens in red. That was
It's-
my point.
It's people who go off to college. It's people who move out of houses. It's people who die. It's
Right.
people who there are duplicate voters. So what happens?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Continue.
They are supposed. There are reports that they're supposed to take this from the
National change of
national
address.
change of address.
Yep.
The Social Security gives them a report for dead people that they're supposed to clean up from, things like that. But it's, I mean, and then they say, well, we can't take them off until 4
And you're
election
finding
cycles.
this?
Yes.
No shit.
Yeah.
We
so
actually created a website that helps other people find these things.
Okay. What's that website?
www.rivoterintegrity.com.
It's a little complicated. I would recommend people coming to a voter roll training class to understand it a little bit
Sure.
better, but you can play around and
You
Yeah,
can look
yeah.
up you can look up yourself if
Yeah.
you
Look up
wanted to.
yourself.
Yeah, but like so for Pawtucket, a city in Rhode Island, I just did this morning just to look up. There's 9 voters with a year of birth of 1922, and they voted in 2022.
From 1922.
So they're 100
a
years
ye-
old.
With
and
a with a year of birth?
yeah,
Like as they died as
I
a
don't
year
know if they're
old, or-
dead.
no. So she's saying that they're 100 years old.
They're at least 100
and-
years old.
and they're voting.
and they're voting.
Right.
You
It's
have
not
3
common.
votes.
not
I mean, it's
common
okay
thing.
if they are,
That's
Sure,
okay.
but that's
sure.
a big number.
But I
Right.
want people to be like, oh, I should probably look at that and make sure that they're actively voting, right? There was one. You have, let's see, 3 voters with a year of birth of 1920. Well, that means they're 102 years old at the time of 2022, right? So they're 102 years old. I don't.
It's not common.
That's not.
I mean,
common.
it happens, but it's
You
not.
might want to check it.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and so
it's definitely something to look in.
I just did that really quickly. Even I know in Providence there's a person with a year of birth of 1800. So that's fun. I want to know what happened there.
I want whatever they're
Good
eating.
good genetics.
Good
Yeah.
genetics there.
Good
1800
genetics,
is
yeah,
good. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
good year. So those kinds of things.
Maybe vampires are real.
Right?
But
Well, they are real. They're in Washington.
that's true. Yeah. So that I can't hit home that enough.
And apparently the Rhode Island State House.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's an important issue because the state is telling you one thing, and when we did the actual research, we know, and other people have been doing it as well in other towns around the state to clean up their voter rolls, and they find things. I can't hit home enough that's like the key to how they get away with a lot of the fraud or a lot of the anomalies that we have found. Is it gives them a lot of wiggle room
And
to
it plays into the ballot harvesting. You know,
Right.
I mean, if you've got those phantom voters, those are the ballots names that you can play with. So if you clean up the voter roll, if you get those actually clean, there is more of it's going to be harder for them to accomplish whatever it is that they're doing. After the 2020 election or the 2022 election, I believe it was in January or February, right after in November having an election, they took over 60,600 and something inactive voters off the voter roll. Why on earth would you wait until after an election to remove 60,000 people from your voter rolls? So in 2003 there were over 100,000 inactive voters removed from the voter rolls. Again, right after an election.
After the election is gone.
Why
through.
wouldn't
Yeah.
that happen before the election?
Right.
anyway.
I have one last question about just as a general idea, what's the population with this 30%
Oh, for my precinct.
in your precinct?
So there's approximately 3,500 voters.
30%.
Yes.
That's amazing.
I did a little pie chart on it and everything, and I even
Do we
presented
know?
it to my town
do we know roughly a
canvassers.
percentage of the state? Actually, like, is there a rough estimate?
I wouldn't. I don't know about you. I don't think I'd feel comfortable throwing a number like that out there because
I
we
get it.
haven't. There
you don't
haven't
have
been
a-
enough towns canvassed, right? This is a small. These are things we found in a small percentage.
And it's right. Okay, so totally get it. It's just, I mean, it's a handful of you, both of you, and whoever that you're communicating with is able to conjure this information up. Not conjure, but
Find it, yeah.
Verify. 30% from one district.
Yes. disturbing.
is disturbing. That's
It
very
is.
disturbing.
And I want
that's
people
that's
to be
super
disturbed.
disturbing.
Yeah.
But that's why we say we need help.
Right.
We need people, you should be interested in finding out what your area data is going to give you.
Yeah.
If it gives you nothing, that's fantastic.
Right.
Great.
That's what we want.
Right. That's what it's supposed
You're
to.
not going to not find at least a handful of anomalies. I can guarantee you it. And it's just, it's just so important. It's
Yeah.
so
It is.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like-
it's some of it can just be done from home. You
I
don't
did a
have
lot
to
of
go
it at
out
home.
anywhere.
I did a lot at home. I have
Okay.
3 kids, right? So
Mhm.
my kids would be doing homework or whatever, and I'd be sitting next to them on my computer doing voter roll cleanup. They'd be
Mhm.
doing their homework, and I was doing mine. This was going back a couple years ago, but it's something that people don't have to feel overwhelmed doing. We'll teach you how to do that.
Mm.
And we'll help you out through the process as well, because there are some laws that you have to follow, and there are some things that you do need to do,
Mhm.
but that we've learned over the way the last couple years. But I can't if that's something that someone thinks, oh, I really want to try to do that, please contact us because we can help you. We have voter roll classes. We try to do them once a month
Okay.
around the state for people to just understand what a voter roll is. I have videos on our website as
How
well to
to.
get you started. But a voter roll is something you can do. I felt like I was doing something.
Mm.
As a mom, I could do that. You know,
Mhm.
some things I can't do, but that's something I could do. And then when I ever found stuff, because I've lived in my town my entire life, I was surprised
Yeah.
and I was shocked.
You saying 30% was.
It's
that's
shocking.
That's very disturbing.
It's very interesting when you can actually wrap your head around an issue that you're finding yourself. It puts you in a position where you feel responsible for making change. That's exactly what happened to me after I canvassed my area. I found issues. I understood what the issues were, and I knew that they needed to be fixed. Going further than that can be tricky, right? Like when you actually finding the issues is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Fixing them is harder.
Mhm.
But we keep paper trails of everything. We keep documentation of everybody that we've brought the issues to, and what their responses were, if it got removed or if it got cleaned up or if it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's every aspect of everything that we target because, again, voter rolls is only one head of the hydra.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big one, but it's only one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that's. I mean, you're still you're exposing what needs to be exposed from at least for this state. And there's so much more work to do. It just sounds like there's so much more work to do. I didn't expect all this information to be brought the way that has brought here, and I'm very thankful that you came onto this podcast. Both of you came onto this podcast to not only educate me, but hopefully educate everybody else that's listening in. This goes on Spotify, so there's a lot of people that tune in and hear it. And not only does this just affect Rhode Island, it affects the whole country. It's countrywide. I don't know if the ERIC system goes countrywide, but it's certainly
Certain states.
Either way, I think everyone, like you said, everyone should be involved in their elections. And I had no idea how deep this wound really has gone. And I go all the way in conspiracy information, and I hate that word conspiracy because it gives that dirty sense of like, oh, that's just
Wear it as a badge.
yeah, exactly.
as a
I hear
badge.
I hear no, I do. I personally do because I
Yes,
know
we do too.
I see the chess pieces playing, but today I got surprised on a lot of information here because I didn't know that you could actually be that involved and that informed on elections and being able to actually be there physically to educate yourself and to be there physically to make sure that these things are going correctly. And the information that 30% in this ERIC system, it's alarming. That's super alarming.
And I'm be real. We could have another one of these, and we could do the same thing and not touch on a single one of those topics,
Right.
and still fill the whole time again because it's a lot, and we're facing a lot of things right now. As far as ranked choice voting, same day voter registration.
Yeah.
All of these things. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Sarah, but I mean, we could have this conversation anytime you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely have you both on this podcast again for sure. And any help that I can provide, again, hopefully this is help. This is part of that help.
Yes,
I
thank you.
definitely want to get involved more so with this because that's very concerning. I'd be very interested in learning about my district and just the whole state. I'd like to know where the whole state is actually at as far as that footprint is. Yeah, I thank you both for coming on this
Thank you
podcast.
for
I
having us.
really
Yes,
do.
thank you.
I appreciate the podcast that you have. I appreciate both of you doing this work and getting involved
you.
and
Back at you.
and
You too.
you know, COVID in some way is a blessing to everybody in a sense. I mean, yes, it's harmful. It was harmful, or we'd be here for another 2-3 hours to unpack that as well. But it lit a fire under a lot of people.
Agreed.
And I'm grateful for that because it lit the right fires.
Yes.
Because you know our country is going to a really dark place, and so is the state.
Well, they don't
apparently.
call it the Great Awakening for no reason.
That's another thing. Everyone's saying the Great Reset, and although it may be there, but the Great Awakening is a lot more
And this
powerful.
is part. And thank you. That I appreciate you having us on because that's part of that. We've been trying to break those barriers of trying to get the information out to people because that's
Yeah.
all we want to do. We have so much information to share with people. We just want to share it with other people to,
Yeah.
you know, like yourself. So
Right.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I
But-
think we've been on more national shows than we have state shows.
We have.
It's
We've
so
been on a lot
weird.
of national
Yeah,
shows.
I've seen that. I've seen some clips and stuff like that you know, and I'm like, wow, like, you know, it's making headway. I mean, it needs to be, and people are hungry for the truth.
They are.
One of the reasons why I just to go real quickly, one of the reasons why I even created this podcast initially when I spoke about any truth or anything was through music. So on the opposite end of this room is where I've done a lot of music. I've done music for many years. And people said like, well, why don't you, you know, speak to people? Why don't you make YouTube videos and all this stuff? And, you know, at the time I just didn't do it, you know what I
Right.
mean? And then sure enough, I was blessed to have this place and blessed to get all this equipment in here to speak to people that I feel that were, you know, they're involved, they're intellectual. I'm interested in, and I think that they have something to give also. And I'm just a conduit. I just want to help. I just want to help. I want to be educated myself, and I keep my face into the information as much as I can, and I'm constantly getting surprised by a lot of stuff. Not surprised, but surprised at the fact that like how deep the wound is. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here just like y'all trying to get that information out there too, and I'm very grateful that both of you came on here to spread that information because it's really important. Where could people find you? Where could people find you?
Renegade Minds on X, on Rumble, and BitChute.
BitChute, okay.
And RI Fair Elections, we have our website, which is www.rifairelectionsandeducation.com. We're also on X. We're on Telegram.
No, we're on Telegram too.
Okay.
And Facebook.
Facebook.
Did I forget anything?
I don't. Truth.
No, I'm not on Truth.
No, you're not on Truth. Okay.
No.
Truth. Oh, Truth
There's-
Social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a website called Roadie for Integrity. Roadie, the number 4, integrity.com. We help out with them, and we actually run our podcast off some of their information too. So they're great for alternative news.
Okay.
They're really really good too. So we have those 3 endeavors we work with.
Sweet. I really do appreciate both of you coming on here. I really do. Thank you for everyone that's listening. I know the video's frozen, but you can hear the audio. As far as I know, we are still on there. Like, share, subscribe on the True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Rumble. Like, share, subscribe. The True Perspective, the TRU Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. And make sure you go to Rumble, and Spotify and Rumble. Spotify so far, they've been very good as far as free speech goes, and Rumble has been very good as far as free speech goes. The other platforms, Facebook and YouTube, you can add them, but I prefer you to go to Rumble. I prefer you to go to Spotify because I need the followers and I need the hits there and I need the information to get across there because it's gonna get spread out to everybody else. Like, share, subscribe, and Magan, Sara, I appreciate y'all. Thank you. I love you for coming on, and hopefully we'll do this soon again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, everybody. I appreciate y'all. I love you. Thank you for tuning in.